A cave, animals, darkness, 2,000 years ago, and the cry of a newborn baby that split human history in two. You think you know this story. Christmas, a manger, wise men, the Bethlehem star. But here's what nobody ever told you. The wise men weren't there that night at all. The stable wasn't wooden, it was a cave, dark, reeking, raw. The baby everyone worshipped as a king nearly got murdered and survived only because strangers from a distant land brought gold that became his escape fund. And then there are 18 years of his life the Bible keeps in total silence. 18 years, not a single word. And that silence has driven people to the wildest theories in all of religious history. A secret trip to India, Buddhist monasteries in the Himalayas, a fake manuscript that fooled the entire world. The truth about Jesus, strange, alive, and shocking, is far more fascinating than anything you heard in Sunday school. Today, we're going inside. Picture this. You're living under occupation. Rome takes 40% of everything you earn, a tax just for breathing. Crucified men line the roads, not as punishment, as a warning. Any soldier who passes you can legally force you to carry his equipment for a mile, just because he can. And over all of this, Herod the Great, a man who drowned his own wife, who executed 3 of his own sons, afraid they'd steal his throne. Caesar Augustus, emperor of Rome, said the famous line about him, "It is better to be Herod's pig than Herod's son." This is the world he was born into. Not a palace, not a capital city, a village no ancient source even bothers to mention. The family of a craftsman, who people have called a carpenter for 2,000 years. But that's not what he was, and that detail changes everything. Why did Jesus stay silent for 30 years? What happened during those decades? We'll get there, and it'll completely change how you see him. 5b. C. Mary, a girl, probably 14 to 16 years old, is 9 months pregnant, and she and Joseph are walking from Nazareth to Bethlehem, 90 miles, on foot, 4 days of travel, in her condition. Why? Rome had ordered a census. Caesar Augustus commanded every man to register in his ancestral city. Joseph had no choice. By the time they arrived, contractions had already started. Joseph knocked on door after door. There was no room anywhere. Forget the cozy wooden stable from the Christmas cards. In 1st century Bethlehem, animal shelters were built inside limestone caves, cut directly into the rock. Picture it, a dark stone cave, the smell of dung and animals, the flicker of a small oil lamp. And there, in absolute humility, the King of the universe takes his first breath. The first people to hear about it were shepherds, not kings, not priests, not the wealthy. Shepherds, people who, in that culture, were considered ceremonially unclean. Their testimony wasn't accepted in court. They couldn't enter the temple, and an angel announced the birth of the Messiah to them.
"Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord." Luke 2:11. Now, about the wise men, one of the biggest myths of Christmas. The wise men were not there that night, not even close. They were magi, astronomer priests from Persia. They'd seen a sign in the sky, likely a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, and they set out on a journey, 2 years on the road. By the time they arrived, Jesus was already about 2 years old, living in a house, not a cave. Matthew's gospel specifically calls him a child, not a baby. The Magi brought 3 gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold for a king, frankincense for God, myrrh used to prepare bodies for burial, a gift for death, on the first days of his life. The question those wise men asked would trigger a massacre. That's next. The Magi walked into Herod's palace and asked a question that nearly got them killed. "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews?" Stop right there. They were asking the current king of Judea where his replacement was. Herod wasn't born a king. Rome installed him. He had 0 blood of David in his veins, and now strangers from a foreign country were saying someone had been born to reign. Herod smiled. He asked the Magi to find the child and report back so he could worship him too, right? When the Magi slipped away by another route, Herod realized he'd been outsmarted, and he did what paranoid tyrants do. He ordered every boy under 2 years old in Bethlehem and the surrounding area to be killed. Bethlehem was small. Historians estimate 20 to 30 children were murdered. To Roman historians, it was a footnote, just another one of Herod's outbursts, not worth recording. To the mothers of Bethlehem, the world ended that night. "Get up, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt.
Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." They fled that same night. How did they survive the journey? Where did the money come from? The Magi's gold. Providence had funded the escape weeks before it was needed. In Egypt, probably in Alexandria, where a large Jewish community lived, they stayed for a few years, until Herod died. Herod's death was grotesque. The historian Josephus describes it: rotting organs, worms, an unbearable stench. He suffered for months before the end came. The tyrant was gone. But the road home had its own danger. Herod's son turned out to be even worse. God stepped in again through a dream. Where that dream led them is coming up right now. God directed the family to Nazareth, a tiny village in Galilee, 200 to 400 people. Josephus wrote extensively about the region and never mentioned Nazareth once. When one of Jesus' future disciples first heard that Jesus was from there, his reaction was, "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" That's where the Son of God grew up, in nowhere. Step inside. Close your eyes. Early morning, nearly total darkness. The windows are narrow slits cut into the limestone, designed for ventilation and privacy, not light. The floor is packed dirt or chalk fragments. You're lying on a reed mat. Your blanket is the same cloak you wore yesterday and will wear again today. The ceiling is low. Sycamore wood beams above you. The walls are partly carved from bedrock, partly stacked fieldstone mortared with mud. The smell, earth, stone, smoke. Last night's oil lamp left soot on everything. This is the house where Jesus grew up. Archaeology confirms it. In 2006, archaeologist Yardina Alexander excavated a first-century home in Nazareth. 2 rooms, a courtyard, a cistern cut directly into the bedrock. Beneath the Sisters of Nazareth convent, another researcher found a rock-cut doorway, still standing to its original height today. Now, the single most important fact about Jesus that almost everyone gets wrong. The Gospels called him the carpenter's son, or even the carpenter. But the original Greek word is tekton. That doesn't mean carpenter. It means builder. A craftsman who worked with wood, stone, and metal. Think general contractor in modern terms. In Galilee, timber was scarce. Limestone was everywhere. Scholars estimate 80 to 90% of construction work in the region was done in stone. Jesus didn't make furniture. He cut and laid limestone. He built walls. He dug foundations. Now listen to his parables with fresh ears. Build your house on the rock. That wasn't poetry. That was his job. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. He knew what it meant to choose the right first stone. Everything else in the building aligned to it. Not one stone here will be left on another. That's a builder talking, not a poet. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. His hands were calloused, not from splinters, but from limestone, cut from chisels, dust pressed into every crease of his palms. And here's the detail almost everyone misses. Just 2.5 miles from Nazareth sat Sepphoris, the capital of Galilee. Josephus called it the ornament of all Galilee. Right when Jesus was growing up, Herod Antipas, son of that Herod, was rebuilding it from the ground up. A forum, a theater seating 4,000, colonnaded streets, mosaic floors so stunning that archaeologists today call one of them the Mona Lisa of the Galilee. The biggest construction project in the entire region. A 1-hour walk from a village full of builders. Joseph and Jesus almost certainly worked there. There they would have met Roman officials, Greek merchants, masked actors performing on stage. The word hypocrite that Jesus used constantly, from the Greek hypokrites, literally means stage actor, someone who wears a mask. Sepphoris had a theater, full of them. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Every morning, walking to work, Jesus could see Sepphoris on the hillside. But here's the mystery. Jesus never once mentions Sepphoris by name in any gospel. Not once. Was that intentional? We'll come back to that. At age 12, Jesus went to Jerusalem for Passover and disappeared. For 3 days, his parents couldn't find him. When they finally did, he was sitting among the teachers of the law, not listening, asking questions. And the professors of theology had no answers for a 12-year-old boy. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. And then the gospel goes silent. For 18 years, no stories, no miracles, no teachings, just one line. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. That silence has driven people crazy for 2,000 years, and it produced some of the wildest theories in all of religious history. Theory 1. Jesus traveled to India. 1894. A Russian adventurer named Nicholas Notovich publishes a book. His claim: at the Hemis Buddhist monastery high in the Himalayas, monks showed him an ancient manuscript, the life of Saint Isa. Isa is the Arabic name for Jesus.
According to this text, a young Israelite named Isa left home at 13, spent years in India studying the Vedas and Buddhist teachings, traveled through Persia, Greece, and Egypt, then returned home. The book was a sensation, multiple printings in its first year. Then scholars demolished it almost immediately. The leading expert on Eastern religions wrote directly to the head lama at Hemis Monastery. The lama's response? No Western visitor had stayed there. No such manuscript existed. A British professor traveled there personally and got the same answer. When Notovich was cornered, he changed his story. Suddenly, the manuscript wasn't one document. It was fragments from various Tibetan scrolls. The manuscript has never been produced to this day. Theory 2. Jesus lived among the Essenes. The Essenes were a real Jewish sect, about 4,000 members, communal living, shared property, ritual washings, sacred meals, apocalyptic expectations. Their famous settlement was at Qumran, on the shores of the Dead Sea, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947. John the Baptist lived in that same Judean wilderness, ate locusts, baptized people. Many scholars believe he may have lived with the Essenes as a child. And if John, the cousin of Jesus, had that connection. But look at what Jesus actually did in his ministry. The Essenes strictly avoided the unclean. Jesus touched lepers. The Essenes kept their distance from sinners. Jesus ate with tax collectors.
The Essenes observed the Sabbath with iron strictness. Jesus healed on the Sabbath. If Jesus knew the Essene way, he deliberately chose the opposite path.
So, what actually explains those 18 years? Joseph died, probably while Jesus was a teenager. After age 12, Joseph is never mentioned in the Gospels again. In that culture, men were identified through their fathers. But the people of Nazareth called Jesus Mary's son. That meant one thing: the father was gone. Jesus had 4 brothers: James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon, and at least 2 sisters. 7 children, no father, a widowed mother. As the eldest son, Jesus became the provider. There was no trip to India. There was an early alarm, tools, the walk to the construction site at Sepphoris, limestone dust, negotiating with clients, coming home, praying on the roof under the stars. Every Sabbath, the synagogue. 3 times a year, the pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Over 30 years, he heard the entire Hebrew scriptures read aloud more than a dozen times. And then, when the moment came, he stepped out of the shadows. Those are the years when nothing happens. When you get up, work, go to sleep, and do it again and again. No applause, no recognition, no signs. Sound familiar? This is where the story of Jesus stops being about a man 2,000 years ago and starts being about you.
1,400 feet below sea level, the Jordan River, the lowest point of land on the entire planet. This is where the story you've heard 1,000 times begins. But have you ever stopped to ask, why here? This place is loaded with history. This is exactly where Israel, led by Joshua, first crossed into the Promised Land. This is where the prophet Elijah was taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire. Beginnings, crossings, heaven touching earth. John the Baptist was baptizing at the Jordan. Jesus came to him. John recognized his cousin and tried to stop it. I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? Jesus said, let it be so now. And when he came up out of the water, the heavens opened. The Spirit of God descended like a dove, and a voice, this is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. For the first time in history, the Trinity revealed itself simultaneously. The Father spoke, the Spirit descended, the Son stood in the water. Then the Holy Spirit led him into the desert, alone, 40 days, no food. The 3 temptations Jesus faced in that desert are the exact 3 core temptations every human being faces, and one of them involved jumping off the top of the temple. Who suggested it, and why that was the most dangerous temptation of all, that's coming up in a moment. After the desert, Jesus returned. He walked into the synagogue in Nazareth. They handed him the scroll. He unrolled it to Isaiah, found the passage. He read, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." He rolled up the scroll, sat down. Every eye in the room was fixed on him. Then he said the words that stunned the room. "Today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." A pause, then a whisper. "Isn't this Joseph's son, the craftsman?" The whisper became a murmur. The murmur became rage. They grabbed him, dragged him to the edge of a cliff, intending to throw him off, but he walked right through the crowd and left. He never returned to Nazareth again. His base of operations, Capernaum, a fishing town on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, a crossroads of trade routes, a tax collector's booth on the main road, and there he healed a man with leprosy. This was more than a miracle. In Jewish tradition, only the Messiah would have the power to cleanse leprosy.
The news spread across all of Galilee within a day. 5 loaves, 2 fish, 5,000 people. The bread didn't run out. The apostles kept breaking it, kept passing it, and it kept multiplying in their hands. They were holding a violation of the laws of physics. When it was over, 12 baskets of fragments remained, 1 for each tribe of Israel. Afterward, the crowd tried to seize Jesus and make him king by force. He slipped away to the mountain alone, walking on water. The disciples were alone in a boat when a storm hit, waves 16 feet high. In the darkness, they saw a figure moving on the water toward them. Here's the detail most people miss. Jesus wasn't coming to rescue them. He was passing by. Mark writes it plainly. He was about to pass by them. Peter climbed out of the boat, walked on the water, looked at the waves, started to sink. "You of little faith, why did you doubt?"
Caesarea Philippi, the gates of hell, a place no respectable Jewish person went near. A cave that locals believed was the literal entrance to the underworld. Temples to Pan, the Greek god. Rituals too dark to describe. The Jews called it the gates of Hades. Jesus brought his disciples here. Here, he asked, "Who do you say I am?" And here, Peter said it out loud. "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." The gates of hell, literally the place where they were standing. He wasn't speaking in metaphor. He was speaking about what he could see. Lazarus, 4 days in the tomb. The most public, most provocative miracle of all, and the one that directly triggered the decision to have Jesus executed. Don't go anywhere. When Jesus was told that Lazarus was dying, he deliberately waited 2 days. Not because he was too far away. He waited. By the time they arrived, Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. In Jewish belief, after 3 days, the soul permanently departs. There is no coming back. Martha said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus answered, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die." And then, the Gospel records the shortest verse in the entire Bible. Jesus wept. John 11:35, Newell. 2 words, the Son of God weeping. Not because he doesn't know what's about to happen. He does. He wept because he saw the pain of the people he loved. He walked to the tomb. The stone was still in place. Take away the stone. Martha, ever practical. But Lord, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. They moved the stone. Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me." Then he called out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And the man who had been dead walked out, still wrapped in his burial cloth. All of Jerusalem was talking about it by that evening. The Sanhedrin called an emergency meeting. What are we accomplishing? Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. Caiaphas, the high priest, made the call. "It is better for you that one man die for the people than that the whole nation perish." The vote was unanimous. Jesus had to die. Stop for a second. Think about this man. He grew up in nowhere. His family thought he'd lost his mind. His neighbors laughed. His own brothers didn't believe. 30 years of invisibility, then 3 years of everything going against him. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right and nobody sees it? Like you're working in silence while others get the applause? Like the people closest to you don't understand, and somehow that cuts deeper than any enemy could. This is the moment the story of Jesus stops being about a man 2,000 years ago and starts being about you. The same God who watched 18 years of invisible labor sees your invisible years. The same God who wept at a tomb weeps with you. The same God who shouted into the darkness, "Lazarus, come out," knows your name right now. After Lazarus, he knew the time had come. He rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, palm branches, shouts of Hosanna, the same crowd that in 5 days would be screaming, "Crucify him." The Last Supper, the final bread, the final cup. He said, "This is my body. This is my blood." For Jesus, this wasn't a new ritual. It was the transformation of something he'd done at every meal in Nazareth for 30 years. The Garden of Gethsemane. The olive trees there are still standing, over 2,000 years old. He prayed so intensely that blood seeped through his skin. This is a real medical condition, hematidrosis. Under extreme stress, capillaries beneath the skin can rupture, mixing blood with sweat. "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Judas, a kiss, guards, arrest. 6 trials in a single night, most of them illegal under their own laws. Pilate declared him innocent 3 times. Herod declared him innocent. It didn't stop them. The crucifixion. Most people think crucifixion killed by pain or blood loss. The truth is worse. Death came by suffocation. To take a breath, he had to push up on his pierced feet, again and again, for hours. Every breath was a choice: endure the pain or breathe. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness covered the land. In the middle of a clear day, his final words, "It is finished." Not, "It's over, it is finished." Like a completed work, a mission accomplished. The earth shook. The curtain of the temple tore in two, from top to bottom. The curtain that separated people from the Holy of Holies, the presence of God, torn forever. 3 days later, the tomb was empty. Mary came at dawn, saw the stone rolled away. She was weeping when a man nearby asked, "Woman, why are you crying?" She thought it was the gardener until he said her name. "Mary," she turned. "I have seen the Lord." More than 500 people saw him alive after the resurrection. The apostles went to their deaths claiming one thing: he rose. People die for what they believe. Nobody dies for something they know is a lie. The same God who saw Mary standing at an empty tomb, he sees you right now. The same God who called her by name knows yours. The same God who wasn't stopped by death won't be stopped by whatever stands between you and him. If this video shifted something in how you see Jesus, share it with someone who thinks they already know this story, because they might know it wrong. Drop a comment. What fact surprised you most? The wise men who weren't there? 18 years of silence? The Himalayan manuscript? Jesus weeping at the tomb? I read every single one. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because the next video is about the apostles. What happened to each of the 12? Their stories are more unbelievable than any Hollywood script. The story doesn't end. It never does.